Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Itzkoff. I'm a culture reporter from the New York Times, and I could not be more pleased to be speaking tonight with Abbi Jacobson and Ilana Glazer and Bingo Bronson. Oh, I guess only I can see him, but he's here. He's here in spirit. The creators and stars of Broad City.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming.
And thank you for sharing what was such a blissfully strange episode of Broad City, and yet somehow only like the third or fourth strangest episode of this past season.
Yeah.
I think part of why viewers love Broad City, not just because it's hysterically funny and not just because the characters take drugs and have visions of giant anime characters, but because it shows two loyal friends who really would do anything for each other. How closely do you think Broad City approximates the real-life friendship between the two of you?
We've been talking about this more in the room as we write season 3, that these girls got to get obsessed with a project, because it's like, we're like, what's partying, you know? Like, I mean, it's hard to tell because we work a lot together. And these characters don't care too much about their jobs.
But I will say I think it's parallel in the amount of time they spend together is parallel to the amount of time we spend together.
True.
But I think we were first drawn together. We were just friends. We were just friends for 2 years before we started this. But we were on an improv team, just friends performing. And I think once we really started doing the web series, we became like, this is our lives. And so I think that is very parallel, where I think on the show, Abbi and Ilana are each other's lives. They just don't have a show.
Right, it's like their friendship is their job.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, gotta put in the time. It's gonna come out somewhere. We don't know where yet, but
Something's gonna happen.
Did you know, just as even before the web series started, just working together on your comedy team, did you already sort of see something in the other person that made you think, oh, this is somebody that, you know, I'm really compatible with, or I'm going to do something really great with this person someday?
I mean, I felt like compatible, but I don't know if I knew that we were gonna.
We met on Jaded.
And then formed an improv group after J-Date.
No, the first night we met, we ended up both on this improv team, and we were at this practice group, and we all went to this bar, McManus, which is where a lot of the UCB performers and students go after performing. And that was the first night we hung out, and we were very compatible. We were like immediate friends.
Yeah, I feel like at first, like when we first met, it's not like, you know, we were just discovering the comedy scene, and we knew that we had a great friendship ahead. And then when we started the web series, it felt like, oh, wow, this is like a work friendship too. And we just got so focused on it. We got so into it. And I think we did always believe like something was gonna like come out the other end of all this focus. It's like it's hard to focus in this world, you know? And we just, I think we, more and more, I mean, the first webisode that we put out, we were like, likes, they like it, you know? I mean, we just
10 likes.
you know? It was like, I don't know, it was enough to keep us going and wanting more.
Mm-hmm. Did you think of the web series in any way as, you know, a stepping stone to something larger? If you knew that it was going to lead to this, would you have approached it in a different way, in any way?
I think when we started, we did not intend to do this. I think halfway through, we created our own seasons in the web series. Once we started our second season, we took it a lot more seriously. So we treated it like it was a TV show just for the web. We wrote all the episodes before. We had a schedule. We had different directors. We paid people in money instead of pizza. And so I think when we approached the second season, we had bigger intentions. But I think our bigger intentions for the first season were proving to our parents that we were doing something in New York.
And also, like, I think so before the second season of the web series, we write the pilot and we try to write all the webisodes beforehand and film as many as we can before we start releasing. But And we planned to go in the summer of 2011 to pitch the show as a show. But I think even then we were like, well, we're gonna try really hard, but even if it turns out in some way, we were like, if we got some writing job off of these pitches, that would be great. I don't know that we definitely thought we were going to sell it, and it's just hard to picture all this stuff. You can have like this vague like brightness at the end of a tunnel or something, but it's hard to picture until it happened.
Actually, when we started doing the web series, there was like rumors. Our friend Lucia Agnello, who actually writes the show and directs the show, she was one of the first people that emailed us after we started putting the web series out. She was like, this is something, you guys got to keep making this, which is one of the reasons I think that we actually kept making it. She had told us there was this show that was being made with Ellen Page and Alia Shawkat, who that night at McManus, I actually thought Ilana was. And I thought I thought Alia Shawkat was on my improv team. But for a while, we were like, maybe we can write on that show. And that didn't work out.
Right.
I don't know.
It just
So you
didn't
wrote
go that
the
way.
imaginary show that you hoped Ellen Page
we
and Alia Shawkat
read an
would
article
do.
that they were making a show. I don't know if they are still.
It was like in development, and we were like, maybe
Too
that's
late for them.
Well,
Yeah, we just
they
thought
had their own thing.
Yeah, they're doing.
I would watch that show.
Yeah, me too. But it was just sort of a vehicle for us. Maybe this will lead to this. Maybe this will lead to that. Haha! Imagine if it led to what it is. And then it did.
Right.
Eventually. Thanks, yo. Thanks.
It felt to me like the first season in particular of the Comedy Central series. It was like, this is such a dude way of talking about things, but it was like the rookie season of like Derek Jeter or LeBron James. Like you just had such confidence.
Love that.
You knew,
Love
you knew
football references.
That's
you-
good.
Thank you.
That's really good.
But you seemed to know exactly what you wanted to do with the show. You already knew exactly what made your voices special. Is that how it felt to you making that first season?
Well, we're back in the writing stage right now, and that's where we tend to be most doubtful about the show. And so when we were writing it, I think our benefit was that we had done 35 web shorts of all different lengths and different. They all kind of had different. Like we did these Hack into Broad Cities as the web series too. So we'd like tried all these different things within the umbrella of the web series, and then when Comedy Central gave us the go-ahead, they also gave us the freedom to hire who we wanted. And so our writers' room were people, all our best friends, people that knew us already. And so we all sort of went into it being like, we're all going at this together. And it did feel very punk-like.
Yeah, there was like a freedom in being so new at it that we couldn't be analytical, where it's getting harder to just pitch and be like, we now have 20 episodes to look back on. So it's different than it was at first. It was just like stringing these pitches together, whereas now it's harder. We're like more in our heads this season in writing, whereas the first season it was like terrifying, and it was like, oh, so tense the whole time. Like, what is this? What is shooting going to look like? It was like, so, we just didn't know what to picture.
And now we wear stuff like this to the writer's room. And I do my hair every day like this for the writer's room.
We get like our makeup done just to feel in our skin,
and it's a whole thing. No writers allowed in the room unless they are dressed up.
It's true. Heels, heels, heels. That's us.
Heels, heels, heels. Yeah, that's Ilana works. Heels, heels, heels.
Did you feel like you had any sort of breakthrough moments in that first season? Just things that you did where it was like, oh, this is what it should be, or this feels like the show. Just moments like that. Or did somebody ask you a question that brought it to a grinding halt? Either.
I remember a moment for me, and it's in the last episode. I think the last episode of the first season still might be my favorite, The Last Supper. And that was like really, we wrote that together as like our core writing team, like people room. And we ended it with this really long walk and talk, just talking about gross fucks. I can't, can I curse in here?
Yeah.
I know, I'm kidding.
I think you already did.
Actors,
So,
come on.
And we ended it on this shot, and that's exactly how we ended the web series.
Right.
And it was like very conscious of like, it's this, you're walking with us, you're walking with us, and you turn around and we walk away from camera. Yeah. And it was like, I just love the way that because we're also like, who knows if they're gonna give us another season? Let's end each season in a way like we might not come back again. So I think that's where we were like, oh, this feels heightened, but very much the same.
Also, Pussyweed in the second episode, it's like we're still not like a show quite yet, but we're just like cobbling it together. I love that because it's so loose. It's like such frayed ends, that episode. It's hard to pick, but I think what I liked about enjoyed about the first episode after we'd written it all and then looking at the scripts, it was like, oh, we learned how to make this show over the course of the show. And our viewers were like in it. They were like, we know you learned like during this. And it's like, it's great for us.
Do you think having also both, grown up near the city, but not in the city, that maybe gives it a certain perspective as well, that you have, you bring something to it that you're still in awe of the city, but still find it adventurous.
For sure, it's like we always talk about being suburban transplants and how it's different than growing up in the city, or even not just Manhattan, but Brooklyn or Queens. I mean, I grew up in Long Island. It's like 2 counties away. Like it feels so close and yet so far because of the cultural differences.
Yeah, and we make the characters from the same places that we're from. I'm from outside Philadelphia, and it is a thing. I think most transplants have a different view of the city, where the longer you're here, you still go through all the same annoyances and struggles of like commuting and all that shit. But it's still, like every once in a while, you're still like, oh man, I get to live here, kind of thing. And I think we really try to infuse those moments of both, those flip-flops.
And there's still a certain kind of pride when a native New Yorker is like, you capture the show and I'm from here, because they know we're not. Yeah. And it's like, I know I'm not. But it's,
They're just really trying to lord that over you. They're not trying to pay you a compliment.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they're like, we know, tri-state area, trash bag, we know. Trash bag. But no, it's just like, we did it. Thanks, sir. Like something about native New Yorkers that's like, I don't know. I grew up in Long Island being like, imagine if I grew up my mom grew up in Queens, even Queens. I was like, imagine what, it's still clearly exciting.
I mean, now that you've done this, for a couple of seasons, and clearly it's succeeding. I mean, is it any harder to kind of conjure that spirit, that feeling of, still trying to look at the city with fresh eyes and not get jaded in the way that, the lifelong residents do, right away?
To me, it's not so much like being jaded with New York. It's like being jaded with like making a show. And it's like, oof, we were so much cooler 2 years ago, just to ourselves. I mean, it's more the process that is, just because we've gone through it a bunch of times. This is the third time, it's a pattern, and it's like starting to notice stuff about ourselves at certain points in the process. But New York is like so funny. That inspiration, for me anyway, is like, you just walk down the street, you're like, ha, ooh, sad. Ooh, it's like,
oh, God,
it's just
I'm the worst human being in the world.
I'm horrible, I'm awesome. Yes,
I think it is harder though, like just the longer you're here and the older you get removed from, because we're writing, we're writing about years ago for us. So, and I feel like I'm even drawing from like, I moved here when I was 22, so I'm like, it's really that. And I play 26 on the show, and I'm 27 in real life. And but no, I'm 28. All right, I am 29. Okay, I will stop. I'm 29. Anyway, look it up. But writing about 22. I'm 30.
What are you?
I'm legit 31. Do not laugh at that one.
Legit.
31.
Yes, she got there.
I was like afraid I was going to say 31 and everyone would laugh and be like, oh God, she's 40.
Well, you have said before, like, we're 45, and people are like,
Yeah, and it's like,
and we're like, oh.
but even
But
though
I'm like,
we're
45 is
writing
gonna be hot too.
even though we're writing about, being 26, it's really like what happened to me, like right when I moved here, where it was like sort of like these 4 to 5 years of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's just harder. Like the longer you're here, you know how to do more. You know how to get around. You know, you have your things. You get set in your ways, even though you move neighborhoods. You have like your way, and so that's something also where you get removed a little bit.
Right. Do you have people that you think of as, comedy influences, or, just people or other shows whose, spirit you were trying to channel in some way with this series?
I mean, for one, Amy Poehler.
Sure.
We're send it out, send those vibes. We still are like, damn, this is a lucky scenario, because we, even as early as UCB on Comedy Central, it's like 1998. Like, it's just like a different world now, and Comedy Central was so different then. And the person who also, Kent Alterman, who is one of our executives, who like made Strangers with Candy and made UCB happen, and we're working with him now. He went away and came back to Comedy Central, and we get to work with him now. I mean, on the Comedy Central side too, the people we work with are huge influences. But
Also, we end up talking a lot about sitcoms from the 90s in the room. We talk a lot about Roseanne. We talk a lot about Friends. Friends has like taken every storyline.
Yeah.
Like someone would pitch and be like, okay, that's an episode of Friends. That sounds like it's and our show could not be like more different from Friends also, but it's interesting that a lot of it still holds up, even though they didn't shoot here at all. But
remember that Instagram video recently? Somebody recut our show to Friends, and it was like Friends music and
Friends
laugh track.
open.
It was insane. It felt insane, but that's the reality we grew up with. We talk a lot about Seinfeld and Sex and the City.
What about because as you're saying, and those were shows, Seinfeld and Friends in particular, those were shows of a different era, and they were multi-camera, they were laugh tracks. In some ways, they broke boundaries, but by today's standards, they would seem almost, they're kind of, traditional in weird ways. And what do you think you can still kind of learn from shows like that?
well, I think we talk about those, and Roseanne also. I think Roseanne and Seinfeld in particular are shows that have such a strong point of view. And I think our show has that as well. And it's just a very, a specific voice about a situation. Like, so ours is like about friendship, and there's, Roseanne is like a family thing, but it's just taking that and like blowing it up and coming really from her voice. And we talk a lot about how we repeat, this is such a small thing, but we repeat a lot of our clothing on the show. And that's the thing that Roseanne did all the time. They all wore the same clothes, and just that kind of a thing, just doing that all the time, where it's like, what's real? And then on Seinfeld, I think it's like, it's okay to almost be unlikable and to question observations.
And also just straight up storylines. It's like, we'll often be like, oof, Sex and the City, oof, Seinfeld, oof, Roseanne. Or it's like, this is we are like in a new era of New York City shows, so maybe we're showing the new version of that same idea. It's hard to, also you're like, is this Seinfeld? Google, it's just like, there's a lot of crap embedded in our brains from childhood that it's like, it'll pop up at any time.
Were you like, oh, did Seinfeld do a pegging episode? I hope not.
You remember when Jerry got pegged?
yeah.
We can't.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
our
yeah.
spin?
Oh my
What's our
God.
version? Tough to differentiate, but
It does seem like you have the license to depict, almost anything you want on the show. Almost anything could really happen. How do you decide what makes a good story?
I think a lot of times when something has happened to one of us, and it feels like that was a funny thing from my actual life, or one of our writers, then we sort of go there.
also this year, after 2 seasons, we have a lot of storylines we've been talking about for years now, and we're like, okay, got to do this already. Like, this is the time.
Like, you feel bold enough that you can...
Yeah, and it's like we know how to place that story now because we have a world to place it in.
Right.
Yeah, it was, we wrote the second season while the first season was still airing. And so there was like no time to process at all. There was like literally a day in between. And so now I think, a world is established, and we can now in the third season explore other characters and not do so much establishing, which I think we were doing a lot of before.
You also had some really great co-stars on the series right out of the gate, and we saw a couple of them in this episode tonight. I mean, Hannibal Buress, having him, from the start, I mean, that's got to be a huge advantage. I mean, how does somebody like him become associated with the series? How did you get him involved in this?
We met Hannibal at the Iron Mule Film Festival at 92Y Tribeca.
But he also was, so our improv team, you guys probably have seen us perform, it was called Secret Promise Circle. I'm kidding, it was terrible. And
we met him one night, he had just come to New York from Chicago. Then
he did stand-up, and this was like in like 2007.
It was like this at Parkside Lounge, do you know it, on Houston and B? And it's like glitter, sprinkles in the back.
Like
it's like
streamer.
Yeah, it's like
thing.
sort of like a Parkside is like a parody of Parkside Lounge or something. And we did improv on like a 10 square foot stage, and then we met Hannibal, and he did stand up there. And then later we met him at this film festival, and he saw our webisode, and he just liked the web series. So we got him in the web series, and then we ended up pitching with his character, Lincoln.
Right, and he just became sort of part of the family.
Mm-hmm. And he kind of set the tone for the other kind of co-star characters that we Arturo, like I feel like is in that vein of someone with like a big heart, and you see it and you feel it, just those kind of people.
Arturo Castro, who plays Jaime, is actually the only main actor that we auditioned. We didn't know him before. Everyone else we sort of knew from UCB.
Like Gemberling, who plays Bevers, John Gemberling,
and Paul is Trey, and Gethard is
and Paul Downs writes on the show. So like everybody was in it already. But Arturo, it was like we all fell in love with him when we met him in the way as though he were our friend already.
Yeah, he's great.
Right. No, he seems like he just kind of fits right into that milieu. Do you use words like milieu in the writer's room?
Yes.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yes, David Itzkoff, we do. We are so smart. Do they know?
You both strike me as sort of equally courageous, equally unflappable. But for whatever reason, and this is just one viewer's opinion, it seemed like this year the lion's share of the embarrassment maybe fell on Abbi's shoulders.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Is that just my perspective, or do you sort of feel like that's how things shook out also?
The embarrassment?
We're just...
I feel like most of the embarrassing storylines come over here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I feel like we set up like the straight man scenario and the punchline, as Abbi and Ilana in the first season, and then I feel like the second season flipped it. And now, who knows? We don't even know third season what that's going to be. You'll tell us.
Third season is up for grabs.
Winter next year. Let us know.
Yeah.
But so there is sort of an idea, at least in the reality of the show, that Ilana is maybe a little more. I mean, she maybe she's less frightened of experiences, and Abbi needs to be kind of dragged into them a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean that was always how we pitched it too. Alana's always sort of pulling Abbi into the adventure of the day. Yeah. So every episode is a day, and that's sort of the basic just for most episodes. And then we sort of got the feel of doing it and started messing around with that a little bit.
And I feel like the character of Ilana like knows what she'll do and won't do. What she'll do, she'll be like comfortable doing it. What she won't do, it's like no. And Abbi, I feel like, is like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm doing you know? So there's like a different kind of relationship with experiences, definitely.
Right. I hope I won't put you on the spot. I hope we can find a sort of tasteful, grown-up, SAG-AFTRA friendly way to talk about this. But I love the pegging episode. To me, it's as much an iconic episode as Lucy and Ethel trying to pack up those chocolates.
That's incredible. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. That's incredible. Thank you.
But I would just love to hear sort of how something like that came together, because that's a very daring topic to try to explore, even on basic cable.
I mean, the first thing I always think about with the pegging episode is that the pegging itself is not the joke. I don't even know if it's a joke. It's just like, that's a thing that exists. It's not like, he pegs. It's like, yep.
Right.
It's more like, I don't know, a conversation. The joke is more an argument wearing a dildo. Right. It's not the pegging itself, which was like important to us as we like chose to write that, because it's not cool.
I think
make fun of that.
In the room when we were coming up with this, I think we were talking about, because all first season and in the beginning, in this episode in particular that you just watched, we've been dealing with Abby's pining over Jeremy, and we've had set that up. Yeah. And we were starting to talk about, how long are we gonna do this? Are we gonna do this for seasons? Like, this might get old. Like, we wanna see this happen. We wanna see, Abby would never make a move, and so she can only do it on a firecracker. Right. And
Vicodin.
Yeah, and Vicodin. Oh. And
I had to Google firecracker, by the way, but now I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the more we start talking about it, the more we're like, well, we don't think it's ruining this thing that we've created. It's only making it better, because we're kind of doing it sooner than you expect us to do it. And then the pegging, like, I honestly, it like came up, and then we were like, no, we're not gonna. That feels like, what are we gonna do? And then the more we started talking about it, the more we're like, this is what we have to do. Yeah. And also like, it's like, no, this is perfect.
I also like love what it brings out between the two young women, beautiful queens. Like, that thing of like, Abby's calling Ilana and she's like, tell me to do it, basically, which is like what you have to do with friends and family.
That's the best.
Yeah.
You call someone and ask them a big question, and you know
answer.
what you want. You want them to say.
And also, as far as like Abby reacting to experiences, I like that she's down to begin with before the call, but it's like when you come out, turn around. It's like, so it's like, this is the dude. What am I gonna not peg this dude? And like, I think also like we, from very early on, developing and talking about it with Amy, she brought to our attention the idea of this show having sexual politics, and that was just very important to us, that it's like, it's not like funny, or it's just as funny as all sex is, the idea of pegging, it was just more like Abby standing there talking, and you pull out and it's like, oh, she still has the dildo on, right. But, it's important for our show to have a certain set of ethics.
Yeah, and she's so into him. The pegging's not gonna, like, she'll try it, she'll whatever. Right. But the specifics afterwards are like, no, I'm not gonna stand for that.
And
like,
that reveals more about a person's character, his whatever, attention to detail, than the choice of pegging. It's like, pick and, check off what you're into. But the thing of like noticing that it looks exactly like the first one, so it revealed more about his character post.
Right. Up until that moment, he was sort of very he seemed like sort of straight edge, or just very like the kind of knight in shining armor character. Right.
A manly like flannel dude or whatever.
Right. And then suddenly it turns out, he fits into that universe as well as any of the other characters.
Yeah.
It just never had that moment before.
And how cool is Steven Schneider? We emailed him, we were like, get ready for this script. Like, being a straight guy just hurt my throat. But like, we sent it to him and we were like, we don't know how you're gonna feel, but heads up, whatever. And he was like, yes! He was so excited. He was so excited.
And
Steven
just to
Schneider.
give you an insight,
So cool.
the way we work is everything is very, very, very scripted. and we get probably 3 takes scripted, and then we do fun runs where people get to improvise, because everyone we usually work with is an amazing improviser. And Steven improvised this line that is amazing. He goes, right in the butt.
Up in his face, his little tushy at the far end of the screen. Love it, love it, love it.
So, Steven.
That episode had some really spectacular guest stars on it. You had Susie Essman and Bob Balaban. They were wonderful. But the one I would never forgive myself if I didn't ask about Kelly Ripa, how that happened.
Woo!
So, yeah, so we had never met Kelly, but we had met Mark. And we recently just said this, so it's like fine to say it again. So we shot a pilot for the show like a year before we shot the rest of it. And Mark Consuelos was the original Jeremy. So, like, we knew Mark, and Mark was amazing to work with. And for whatever reason, for scheduling reasons, it just didn't work out. He couldn't do it. And then we got Steven, and it worked out great. And but we knew Mark, and he was amazing. And then when we were writing this script, we had to come up with someone who has a persona that we would totally switch.
But also who you could see
Yeah.
filling that other, you know? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
she's like a badass
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah.
You know, and she does toe that line. I mean, you get that feeling that she's just really, really cool. I
Yeah.
love that she's like, I'm not America's sweetheart. I mean, it was incredible that she was down. I mean, she
Yeah.
was so down. She was so fun
A
to work
bunch of
with.
deleted scenes because it was like so much good material with her that I'm gonna say what some of the funnest stuff was. She
Is it going to end up on a DVD
we
release
wrote it.
someday,
I hope
perhaps?
so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
it might be on the DVD. She we had her saying how Regis hired her. And me and her made prank calls to Regis. And it's so fun. And we just like couldn't use it all. There's like, cause it's only 21 minutes long, an
But
episode.
she was like down. It was,
Yeah.
and
She
it
was
was like
so down.
so.
She seemed to like just already like understand the spirit of the show. I mean, it just
Almost like what you're saying about Steven, who plays Jeremy. Kelly Ripa fits in the Broad City world.
Yeah.
She really does from that episode.
Whew, it was a treat.
So we have some questions from the audience that I'll start reading from in a moment. But before I do, I just want to ask, because I imagine this will come up in several people's questions. But is there anything you are permitted to say yet about season 3? No.
We'll say
Another grinding halt. Sorry.
if there's anything we are or not.
That we
Or
can
that
say
you
about
would-
season 3.
Yeah.
It's just like we are tripping because we're in the writer's room. It's just
We're
like,
very close to being done. We have 3 more to go. I will say some amazing guest stars in mind.
it's like we're either gonna like,
Right.
See
Daniel
tease or
Day
not.
blank.
yeah.
It's. I think you see.
We'll meet
a
more
lot
family. We do address like in the same way that with Jeremy, we're not going to save addressing certain relationships. We just go for it because it's like you never know which season is your last season. But pretty much vague shit like that.
Okay. Well, let's
Sorry,
ask some
dear
more
David.
tangible questions.
Yeah.
then. This one was addressed to Hi Chicas, so I have to.
Cute.
I have to start
Hey,
with this
chicas.
one. So the question is, what if any real life experiences have made it onto the show?
Like truly all of them. I mean, so many.
Edge of Glory, was that somebody's real life experience?
I love. That is my. I mean, I live by myself, so it's a weird thing for me to be like, no one's home.
Right.
But I love that song. That is like a good get me going song.
Pussy weed is real.
Right.
Yep.
Just the tax part. Just the tax part, right?
The tax part is very real. Like today, it is very real.
The vow thing is actually real, but not. We heightened that. That's something in college I drank a lot more than I do now. And just when I would get like blackout drunk, my friend and he would be like, Val's coming out. But I didn't sing Judy Garland songs. But that was something in the first season where I was like telling this thing and we couldn't fit it in, and then it fit, you know.
Lockout, Creepy Locksmith, that's like real. That like I'm like going through first season, Fattest Asses. We went to like a party once at the Boom Boom Room, and we were like, what is going on? And that was kind of like in our heads based on that experience.
I mean, I handed out flyers for Equinox. Grand Central location.
Woo!
We worked at a company very much like deals.
Yeah,
we sat next to each other.
At Life Booker with
Were you Holy
Lucia.
Terrors there also?
We were writing
Lucia was
show.
Lucia was very Alana Wexler. Lucia Agnella was very Alana Wexler, more Alana Wexler than we were. But we were like G-chatting, writing
Right.
the pilot. Like it was, yeah. We weren't great. We weren't great employees, but we weren't the worst. Also,
My whole living situation on the show happened to me.
with Bevers.
Yeah, in a much shorter period of time.
But a roommate who was just as horrible.
A roommate who
right,
I didn't see as much as I saw her boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was actually not like Bevers at all.
Oh, okay.
Bevers is so John Gemberling that there is no one else like
Gembo
that.
can't not be a Gembo.
Yeah.
Lucia has the seafood allergy. People ask me, and I'm like, no offense to her, but thank God I don't, because I love seafood. Yeah.
EpiPen. I went to overnight camp, and the head of overnight camp, I was a counselor, she was showing us a kid was allergic to nuts and milk. She was showing us how to use an EpiPen, stabbed herself.
But she was a doctor,
She's
so
a
she was
doctor.
like speaking
So she was like, and so the adrenaline is coursing through my body now, and I'm good. I'm okay. We're gonna end the meeting now.
You guys like
And so we
clap
used
at the
that,
end of
yeah.
the counselor meeting?
So no recreational application there. Don't try that at home.
I don't think it's.
Not
I
into
don't think it's
uppers.
really a fun feeling.
No.
Yeah.
Another audience question that maybe is appropriate to the moment. Do you feel the need to be more glam now that you are in the public eye?
Interesting.
Again, I said that we dress like this all the time. It's like how we wake up like this.
No.
Woke
I
up like
don't.
this, yeah.
I think
I
definitely
didn't
feel
wake up
pressure.
like this. I'm like,
We
I
definitely
don't
feel
the-
pressure in like a situation like this.
Yeah. Like we have more like events to be like, what am I going to wear? But like every day, it's like I'm like biking to work. I'm sweating. I was just saying to Abby that I bike home, took off my leggings last night. I was like, these are wet, and it was like, yeah, it's summer in New York. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You're sweating.
Right.
We're pretty gross,
pretty
especially during
gross.
writing. I mean, also like during shooting, it's like you do the makeup, you do the hair. It's like gross, actually. It's like 12 hours more, and it's like, it's pretty gross. But this is fun. You know what I mean? This is like, hey,
fun.
David. Hey, guys at New School. What's up, Seth? You know, this is fun.
Yeah,
but like,
catch us an hour ago.
or in an hour, and it's like,
we're in an hour.
It's like not even close. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another audience question. If you didn't have the success of the web series, where do you think your career paths would be right now, and what would you do to stay artistically fulfilled?
Well, just like I hadn't thought in a while about like, you know, how we had talked about the different options of, okay, we might sell this show, but also what are the other options? I feel like we would have, you know, tried to get a writing job, or we would have hoped that experience of pitching and meeting that many people would have parlayed into something more. But I think we'd both be still working, writing and performing and comedy.
Yeah, I think so too. And at the end of our web series, we had started to make, like, we made a short film that actually is very similar to the third act of Fattest Asses, with these two guys trying to have a foursome with us. And we started to write like a little bit longer. I think I would like to think we would still be doing it until something happened. I think that's what you just gotta do.
And it's like we wrote a Broad City pilot. Like maybe we would have written the next pilot, and you know, and been this like writing team, not as much as the faces and writing duo, you know. But I think we couldn't believe that it happened the way it did. I mean, we would have kept going for sure. I mean, in comedy, without a doubt.
Is it too soon? I'm sorry if I put you on the spot again, but to think about like feature length stuff, is that on your radars at all?
Yeah, we're working on a movie now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. You guys are too generous. You're already here. You're so sweet. Thanks.
Could you describe just the first 2 of the 5 acts? You don't have to tell the whole story.
Yeah, it's no.
Nope.
When this is an audience question, when you're writing your jokes, how do you decide when you've gone too far? And are there any jokes you wrote that Comedy Central vetoed?
The first thing I'm thinking about, this was in the first season. Comedy Central, I don't know why, had a problem with showing incest on the show. We
get
just
it.
had
I
to
don't
do
get
it. They
It's
were
so
like,
in vogue, though. It's HBO. Everybody's
know.
doing incest. It's
that was a thing that we went back and forth on a little,
so funny.
and we were
It
like,
is
if we're gonna
so hot
do
right
it,
now. Incest is so hot right now.
Ew. We were like, if we're gonna go there, we have to. We gotta go there, and it was a back and forth. That was like a main thing where they were like, we don't like it.
Yeah, and they're usually not like, don't do this joke. You know, it's usually like more about crafting the joke in a certain way, but they're usually very supportive.
yeah. I would imagine if you didn't already by now, you must have, a lot of autonomy. I mean, they've seen what you do when you're more or less left to your own devices.
And the way that we started with them being like, what's your vision? It was like, for real? So I mean, from the beginning, they've had this super artistic, art-centric approach.
Yeah.
Actually, last season, in the episode The Matrix, where we're in Prospect Park and we're on rollerblades, we get all these S&P notes, and like that's so standards and practices. That's like all legal, cursing, anything that like you can't say brands and all this stuff, and so those things are often checked, And this one thing where we're yelling out, "Wanna fook," that was a thing we like couldn't do. Because it sounds very much like fuck. It's very
How did
clear.
that happen? That's so bizarre.
And so
Yeah.
that was the day that Kent Alterman,
Doug Herzog
and
who's at
Brooke.
Viacom, and Brooke Posh.
so like the
who's gonna be on our
main
show.
Comedy Central people came that day and watched that scene. And we did all these alts where we don't say "wanna fook." I don't remember what the alt was. But they loved it so much that they were like, we'll figure it out.
Oh, well.
And so it's like, that's cool. They do it the other way.
Wow. So
Yeah.
Doug Herzog stepped in and said, I will
For
get this
real.
joke on the air one way or the
He
other.
called and he said, "Wanna food?
Yeah.
Wanna food? I wanna food."
Yeah. Something else we talked about recently was coloring of pubes that Comedy Central fought
Pixelating.
for. Pixelating, like letting there be implied hair in the pixelation, and that not everybody removes all hair like children. And they were like, point taken. And they fought for it. I mean, it was like for us, like a symbol of feminism, seriously, that they supported.
Doug called and he said,
For real.
"Colored pubes, colored pubes."
Want some pubes? Colored pubes.
Was Whole Foods a kind of willing and ready participant? They were happy to.
Well, let me ask you, have you been to Whole Foods in Gowanus? Honestly, have you?
No.
It
Really?
is amazing.
It's so
It is
amazing.
amazing.
I don't feel comfortable going there now. I have to be honest. But I love it. I have to like go in a disguise. I could go maybe looking like this because no one recognized me. But at first I think we maybe got a no, and we went on Twitter.
I know, that was very interesting, and that was very second season where our producers heard no, but we tweeted like, come on, Whole Foods, respond to Kelsey Kiley, like our an associate producer on the show. And
then they
they
said
did.
yes.
They responded
cool.
to us, and then
Like,
they
we will
got
take our
that.
shit to Trader Joe's and we do not care. Yeah.
It was so cool to like sort of talk to a company. It's interesting to see that in this process.
So this is an audience question. This is from somebody who is graduating from the new school next year and is interested in comedy writing. This person asks, was wondering what agency was needed, but also, do you think you should actively seek success? Why or why not?
Agency, I'm like, don't even think about it. Put it out of your mind. Don't even think about it. The more thing, like focusing not on success, but like focusing on your voice and your body of work, because the rest of it, you'll suddenly be in the scene or whatever, and you'll suddenly be at whatever level you're like thinking of now that you are imagining, but aren't going to be as impressed with once you're there. It's truly like write and perform and create a body of work that you can email a script, that you can send a link to your performance, that you can say, come to this show, I'm performing then. Just do it. Did anybody see that weird Shia LaBeouf video recently? I'm like sounding like him right now. Did you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. But I
I
am
saw
like,
it too. I saw it. It was great. It was
I
so
filled
funny.
in, but it's but I am like, just do it. Like, just do it. Just do it.
I was looking through my old journals because I was looking for material, and it was so funny. I used to write all these ideas, like I'm gonna do this project, and it was like mapping out this project and all this stuff, and it's so much talking about the projects, and it really is just like, just make the thing, and it might suck, and then just like remake the thing, and like it is the same. I'm saying the same exact thing you said.
But I do have to say that just hearing you say that, like, there are these old projects that we've been talking about for years that we still both plan on, individual, together, whatever. These projects that, so it is kind of cool that you have like this map of how you saw it being made then, but it's true. It's like it's useful up to a certain point, and then it's just like, you know, it's like you can ask questions, but like everybody like knows what their thing is going to be, kind of. Even if it's not like so perfectly formed. It's like, I don't know, I feel like comedy people like have that thing calling for a long time.
Do you think having the partnership helps in the sense that each of you sort of is encouraging the other, and maybe things that you might not have tried on your own, the other person is saying, no, like, give that a shot, do try it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we have a very weirdly rare partnership, I think, where we started doing improv almost exactly the same time separately, and then both, when we were coming up and doing improv, Ilana did a lot more stand-up, and I did a lot more character stuff. And I think our voices are very different individually. So there's not really like a competition at all, because we're very different on the show. We're very different actors. And in the writing room, too, we have very different strengths and weaknesses. So all our individual projects are very different, but while we're doing Broad City, and all along while we've been doing it since the web series, there's always been these other things. But it does push both of us to do the other thing.
And we like check in about each other's projects. It's like, we're just very lucky the way it all panned out. This like sort of sisterhood that's more encouraging, and it's like poly or some shit that we're like do shit together, and then we have individual and like ask each other about it, and like really we're like, what about this? You know, I mean, I can't imagine another scenario than this one.
Do you know what we are? And I just realized it. We both took this CAPES coaching class, which is like a legit class.
That this audience, I think, would actually be very
and
into.
UCB used to have this sort of a partnership with them, and it's about like, oh, I really want to do all these things. And it was sort of the class that helped you focus. And one of the things in the class is you have a partner, and you're holding each other accountable. And
Exactly.
that's all you need. You don't need to write with someone. You don't need to be an acting partner. You just need someone that is you're gonna tell them an idea, and like 2 weeks later, you're gonna be like, so what's going on with the idea?
I'm like getting chills.
Because you talked about it, and you didn't do it yet.
And it's also like, you need that in life too. You know, you need like people who are like, you tending to yourself, or you like, you know, I mean, it's comedy and our work has become our lives, and it's all like so intertwined, but that's right. We hold each other accountable.
I have no idea what's going on with you in your personal life, though. I'm
Nothing.
kidding. I know the ins and outs.
Ins and outs and all around.
I'm sorry, they gave me the signal to wrap things up. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions tonight, but a huge round of applause for Abbi Jacobson.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so
you
much,
guys. Thanks so much, everybody.
What a pleasure. Oh, my God.
Thanks so much, everyone. Such an honor. Thank you.